Hi everyone, Naven here. Welcome to this episode of Soul Creativity. I have a really exciting guest for us to speak with this evening, or actually, it's not quite evening yet this week. But before we get started, I just wanted to mention that the live chat is up. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat and I will make sure that we get to them. I also want to mention to please like and subscribe. And also, you can get information about how to contact me or our guest right below the video. So before we get started, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching. And of course, I want to welcome our lovely and very amazing guest, Shelly Whitehouse. Welcome, Shelly.
Thank you,
I'm
Naven.
so glad that you're joining us, and I know that you are a wealth of information and you have a lot to say about creativity and motivation and inspiration and creating heart-centered business. So that's really exciting. I know it's something that I'm very interested in, and I know our listeners will be as well. So thank you for joining us. Before we get started, Shelly, not everyone might know what equine assisted, like facilitation or businesses is. So can you just give us a little brief
Yes,
update on that?
of course. So um, it is my mission to help equine assisted learning to become one of the go-to modalities for personal and professional development. And the reason is because working with horses can accelerate our understanding of ourselves and our behavior. And I'll just be really brief about why that's so. But horses are always looking for a leader, always. And if you're not the leader, then they will either be the leader or they'll leave because if you're not the leader, then they don't want to be with you. They always want to be with somebody who is the leader. And by that, I mean the leader of yourself. Doesn't mean you have to be the CEO of a big company or a team leader or anything like that, but you have to understand your own head, heart, and actions. And if those are not in alignment, like if you're thinking terrible thoughts about yourself, but you're saying how great you are, and then you're out of alignment. So horses require us to be in alignment to be a leader. And we can do various things. You've experienced it yourself, and it was incredibly powerful. But you can do various activities and or just be with the horse. And when you have a facilitator that understands horse and understands coaching and or therapy and facilitation, they can help you as a participant navigate that learning that comes up and apply it to your real life. Okay, so that's in a teeny tiny little wee nutshell what facilitation with horses is. My focus has come to be helping other facilitators and practitioners, people who are equine inspired entrepreneurs, is to help them develop businesses where they can actually reach more clients so that this modality of learning is reaching more people. Does that make sense?
It definitely makes sense. And you're right. I did work with you and the horses. It's been a while. Now, it was such a powerful experience. And I'm thrilled that there's someone out there like you helping folks that want to get an equine started business, because that's so important. And it was, even though I had been studying it for years, actually being there and working in the presence of horses and then having someone knowledgeable to guide you through that was so important. And so I'm really glad that you're leading others now to do that, to help us all. I know your story, like most of us in the transformation world, have some type of transformation story where we were doing either corporate work or something that really wasn't our true calling. And I wonder if you'll tell us a little bit about your transition into what you're doing now.
Sure. Um, well, I have a long story because I'm old, but I came into, I was kind of going through an identity crisis, a midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. And I won't go into all the details. But I was in that place of like, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what's going to make me happy, because what I thought would make me happy, or what I had always dreamed I would do, really wasn't an option anymore. And this is like after kids and that kind of thing. And you always think, oh, I'll just get back to who I was when my kids are growing up. And like, that didn't happen. And I'm like, oh my God, now what? So long story short, I picked up this book, and I tell everybody this. I picked up a book by Jack Canfield, who you might know. And he was one of the co-authors of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And he's an amazing mindset mentor. And so he has a book called 64 Principles How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. And I've taken that to heart in terms of any kind of coaching, or anybody that is a coach or a mentor of some sort, is your role is to help your clients get from where they are to where they want to be, whatever that is. Okay, so there's this great little exercise in there. And when you go through this exercise, it will help you determine, what your strengths are and what your passions are and that kind of thing. And so I did this little exercise, and it said, it came down to personal development with horses. And this was 15 years ago, 2006. It was 15 years ago. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I'd never heard of coaching. The only thing I knew to do with horses was to be a trainer, which I didn't want to be. I was just like, what am I supposed to do with that? And I just threw the book across the room. I'm like, that's it. Shortly after that, I was in a bookstore, and I came across Linda Kahana's book called The Dao of Equus. It's just a fabulous book. And anybody that does this work, you have to read it. And so I started reading her book, and literally I just tears streaming down my face. I'm like, oh my God, this exists. Personal development with horses. This is what this is. This exists. It's a thing. Like, this is it. So that started me on that journey. And I was 06. So by 08, I was a certified practitioner and starting to, go my own direction. And then started teaching other people how to facilitate with horses and integrate coaching. And what I discovered was that many of these people who were coming through facilitation learning programs, who were becoming, like, developing these incredible superpowers, they were such good facilitators and practitioners and could really make a difference, but they weren't getting clients. They weren't building a business. And I started getting really frustrated by that. Like, why are these people they're so good at what they do. Why aren't they having clients? Why don't they have a business? So that was 2017. And I was just, I have to do something about this. So then I wrote the book, The Business of Coaching with Horses: How to Get More Clients, Feed Your Horses, and Change the World. That's what we're doing. So that's my story in a nutshell. And that's what I've been doing ever since, is helping practitioners develop programs and services, and developing their own signature service so that they can charge enough money, get enough clients to actually sustain themselves and build an authentic business. But a business, this gets to the creativity part, but a business that actually feeds their soul.
Right. You're talking about feeding the horses,
Mm-hmm.
and that all goes together. So many of us, have these great creative, and I think needed, um, gifts to put out into the world. But because it's not the standard way of doing things, you're not just walking into a company and, hoping to move up to a certain position where you get to do that. I mean, we're actually having to be on the ground and creating it. Mm-hmm. And that's something new for a lot of us. And I think your story reflects what happens to so many, especially women.
Mhm.
We go through raising our families, and you're right, you can't just step back into what you were, 20 years before that. And also, I think after that period, raising children is such a creative endeavor.
Mhm.
And I think it kind of keeps you in touch with what this is in your heart and soul that you want to bring forth. And so I think that's a really important point to make, and a connection that I think a lot of us have in common,
Mhm.
that you kind of go through that identity crisis. So I really like the way you describe what you do to help people, as you're designing for them, or getting them to design,
Mhm.
to recognize their own um, philosophy and gifts and what they want to bring forth. And I know you talk about, coming from the heart and soul, doing a heart centered business. And I really like the wording creative business, because creative business in the type that we're talking about is a lot different than, or often a lot different than, what we see just in a corporate or marketing setting. This goes much deeper than just marketing. And so I think that's really important. And I wonder if you could talk about that, talk about doing this creative business that feeds your soul.
Yes. It's my passion talking about this. So two things, and help me remember number two as I'm talking about number one. But number one is um, the evolution of how we got to where we are, especially particularly as women. And then number two is the actual marketing aspect of a heart-centered business. Okay. So number one is, and it has a lot to do with our place in society uh, up into up until this point in our living history, and money, and that it's only been 100 years since women have had the right to vote. It's only been 100 years in this country, and there's countries all around the world where women do not have a right to vote. So in our collective psyche, we have been labeled less than. Doesn't mean we were or are, but we have been labeled that. And and then even in 19 since the 19 it's only been since the middle 60s since a woman could actually like buy her own home or her own car, or have her own bank account without her husband on the that kind of thing. So this is this is new. And and for people who are younger, um it they may not quite understand all of this, but in our collective psyche as female species, um there's been a sense of oppression and a sense of not being worthy. So now we are in an age where almost suddenly our creative abilities and insights are being honored and accepted. Not 100%, like, still not equal, but it's so much more. And when we put ourselves out there as quote unquote business owners, we tend to be more tentative, more reserved. We tend to charge less than our male counterparts would. Even if it's, and I'm not talking about selling widgets, I'm talking about putting our creative uh, our creative attributes out there. And that's something that is slowly evolving. Okay. But I find it's a real thing for women. Like I have clients that had no problem making 6 figures plus in a corporate job. No problem. But now they're offering their own service, and they like want to fall on the floor in a fetal position and cry when it comes to asking for money. Right? This is societal programming at work. does not mean you're not worthy, or your service isn't awesome. So there's some of that happening, and especially when it's feels personal, like if it's a piece of artwork, or you're teaching something that you're mentoring, or that kind of thing. We tend to think, oh well, I just know how to do this, and I just want to help people. Yes, of course you want to help people, and you deserve to eat also. Right. Okay, so any thoughts about that yourself? I'm sure you have some.
Yeah, I was just thinking, in addition to, that it's in our psyche, like you said, being women, and how our particular, you know, I don't want to just say, because obviously there's overlap between men and women, but these feminine traits not being valued. In fact, for people of a certain age that did work in the corporate world, they were actually considered to be a drawback.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have that going on. And even though some younger women may not, or they still may experience that, it is in our psyche. The other thing is creativity in general, in the way that we're talking about it, was not valued.
Mm-mm.
And so with the shift going on, I really feel like creativity, in addition to the divine feminine rising,
Mm-hmm.
but its creativity is something. It's like this sacred creativity now that's coming from the heart and soul. It's not just about like creating in the normal way that you would think of. And I think for the arts and for heart-centered businesses or endeavors, we've always been coming from the heart and soul and tapping into that divine or sacred creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're talking about what women are going through, even for men, if they want to do something that's non-traditional,
Mm-hmm.
we're all facing that, I guess, lack of awareness of what creativity really is and what it contributes
Mm-hmm.
to the world and how important it is. So I was thinking about that as you were talking.
And I 100% agree. There's so that leads me to the process of sharing your service. Okay, people can't, and especially women, like, we can't. Oh, I don't want to sell any. I don't want to have to sell anything, or marketing gives me the heebie-jeebies, or whatever it is. And again, there's so much social conditioning, and there's so many bad experiences based on that we automatically assume that we're going to be seen as slimy and underhanded, and that we must be lying. And we're literally the ones who are ushering in a new way of sharing our services. And it's not so much about, hey, this is the latest greatest thing, it's going to drink 7-Up, it'll make you younger in 7 days. It's like, it's not like that. It's more about education. It's more about education and inspiration. And that through that process, you will connect with other people who are like-hearted, and that will resonate with who you are and what you have to offer, so that when you do start to work together, it's a fit. There was no trick involved to getting somebody to work with you or to buy your thing. It's because it speaks to their heart, because you're speaking from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's where the authenticity comes in. And the other thing I want to share that I mentioned before we started the call, here's what I see happen. These beautiful, intelligent, creative, talented, heart-centered people want to start a business, and they want to help more people, or they want to reach more people through their words or their art, or whatever the thing is. But as soon as you start to help them set up a business, it's like, all that heart-centeredness disappears. It's like they step into a whole, you got the right and left side of your brain, you know, like it's like they cut themselves in two and they try to become this other person. And then that's not fun because they've left out the heart and soul because they think that's how it's supposed to be in business. If you can stay in your, in that place of the benefit of what you have to offer. I mean, I share with people, you know, creating a business that serves people's needs is every bit as creative and important and inspiring as a great novel or a beautiful painting or poem or, you know, a Broadway show. I mean, it's every bit as, it takes every bit of thought and attention and sweat and tears and love to build that as it does anything else. It's just as a creative. And so that's kind of like the message I want creative people to understand. You can have a successful business. Just don't cut yourself off from it. You're not two separate people. Bring all of you to that part.
I think that's really important, this integrating all of us, because there were times in certain positions we've been in where you do, you know, this is the business me, this is the creative me, you know, this is the me that interacts with people, and so now I think it's really exciting that we're, you know, as entrepreneurs, as creative entrepreneurs, we're bringing that all together. And I see all these combinations of things that you wouldn't have thought sometimes have anything to do with each other. And people are making really creative decisions. I think too, it's like part of growing your awareness around, and that's what you do, you know, help people recognize as soon as we step into something creative, obviously we get that chatter in our head, you know, who do I think I am? I can't do this. Or that was a nice idea, but so-and-so's already doing it. Or of course, so-and-so can do it. She's more outspoken than I am, you know, that type of thing. And so I think you probably work with always getting your clients to get back to that feeling that drove them there in the first place, you know, coming from the heart and soul and creativity. So do you have like exercises and things that you keep, you mentioned one before, the Jack Canfield one, but to keep driving ourselves back, because that's what I find. I just have to always keep bringing myself back to what started me on the path.
Shared there, the bringing yourself back. So yes, when I mentor people, mindset, personal development, creating your own business, like becoming an entrepreneur, is the hardest personal development program you will ever put yourself through. It just is. Because you have to face all your own demons. You have to, or you can't be the person that's going to help somebody else through a transformational process.
Right.
You know, not authentically. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. You have to be working on whatever's coming up, whatever, you know, if you're hitting a roadblock, what are you going to do to get yourself through it? You might need to reach out and hire a coach or hire, you know, some other help yourself. So that you can keep moving forward, so that you can keep helping those people you're serving move forward also. Shoot, I was just going to say something. Oh, yes. Okay, what you were saying about moving through it. So there's kind of this actual, this will be a good thing to close with. There's this actual, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's called like the emotional measurement of doing something new and big, like taking on the new big thing. Okay. And you start out with unbridled optimism. Like, oh my God, this is the greatest. I finally found what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And it's, you know, this is incredible and it's going to be great. And I'm going to make $1 million in 2 days. And so you start all the way up up here. See if we can get on the screen. Start up here. And then after you like actually start figuring out how much work it is, and you kind of start going down a little bit, and then you get to this place where it's called informed pessimism. I mean, like the more you know, the more like, dang, I didn't realize this is going to be so much work. I haven't, 2 days have gone by, I've not made $1 million. I suck, you know, this isn't going to work. And then pretty soon you like drop down into like the valley of despair, like as low as you could go, like, okay, I should just quit. I'm no good at this. This is harder than I thought. It's not going to work. Nobody likes me. I think I'll go eat worms. We're done. And then some shiny object comes along and you're like, oh, maybe I'll do that. And you jump all the way back up to this happy place of, you know, hopeful optimism. This is going to be the great, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the great thing, right? And you keep, and then as soon as you figure out that's work too, and it's required to like get through it, you go back down into the valley of despair again. And so there you are. So what I want to help people get through is the valley of despair. They start out like really way up here, and it's all great and it's really fun. It's like the honeymoon period. And I tell them right up front, this is going to challenge you. It's going to challenge your beliefs about yourself. It's going to challenge your beliefs about values. It's going to challenge all kinds of things in your life. And my job is to hold your feet to the fire so you don't get burned. But we got to get through it. So when they get down in that valley of despair, I can say, remember when we first got started and I said this is probably going to happen? If you can stay there, instead of like trying to bounce back out and go, oh, it's something else. I'm not supposed to be here. If you can stay there and keep moving through it and keep getting the information you need and keep applying what you're learning, you know, you will get to a place where you're more, where you start to develop mastery. And as you get through that place, you'll actually get up to where you really embrace the success that you're having. And you don't just see it as a fluke, you can embrace it. It's a real thing. Then you're going to grow again. And you're going to go through another valley of despair. But once you've gone through it, you won't ever go through that same one again. And once you get through it, you'll realize you can get through the next one even faster. And that's my advice to people who are stepping into or developing their passion as a business, is, you know, find somebody that can help you get through it and keep going. Just keep going. It doesn't mean you won't tweak and change and grow and evolve and all that kind of stuff, but don't just drop everything and go, oh, I'm not supposed to do that after all. I'm supposed to learn how to paint and go do that. And then I'm going to be a great painter, or I'm going to be a ballet, you know, Broadway star. Great. And do one thing at a time.
I think that's really important because there are two things you're talking about. One is, I think when you're creative and curious, which creatives are, and you're entrepreneurial, I do think those shiny objects come along and we're naturally drawn to them, you know, because we are so curious. And I also think the importance of collaboration. We love to collaborate, but that wasn't a traditional way to do things. You were supposed to do things on your own.
Right.
You were supposed to make it on your own. You know, that was success, even though nobody really probably ever made it on their own, even though it might have looked like it, you know, from the outside. So I think those are two important things, that we don't ever have to feel like we're less than or we failed in any way by reaching out. And, you know, coaches have coaches, and that's the way, you know, we just come together and we help each other. And so I think that's a really important point. And with that said, can you tell everyone how, even though it's below the video, but how people can reach you?
Yes. So my website is ShelliWhitehouse.com, and it's spelled just the way it is on the screen, SCHELLI, Whitehouse.com. You can download my book for free from the website that you can get the PDF version. And even if you're not an equine inspired practitioner, it's just practical. It's practical steps for really any soulful service provider. Is, you know, I call people that do what they do for a living because it's an extension of who they are, right? That's the soulful service provider. And so the book would apply. There's lots of people that read the book that are not equine practitioners and got a lot out of it, especially when it comes to just like starting something new or designing something to make it more profitable.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I can say after working with you, we were near the horses and everything, but I know the advice that you had and the processes that we were using, the exercises, they were all, I mean, I wasn't at that time, you know, ready to do,
Mm-hmm.
to work with horses. I mean, I just loved horses and I loved being around them. And so for me, it was at that time more the personal growth aspect of it. The horses were amazing, but the exercises obviously can be, you know, adapted and done on its own because that's where you have to come from before
Right.
you go anywhere else anyway. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah, so just a shout out to, you know, that I found your
Well, most of my
help.
clients now I work with virtually.
Yeah,
All over the world, it's, you know, Zoom, and especially since COVID. Yeah.
yeah, I can understand that. And in some ways, that's helped a lot of us
Mm-hmm.
be able to reach out further than we would have. We do have a comment. What an inspiration about determination and right thinking. So that's from Lori. And yes, definitely, that's true.
Thank you, Lori.
So I want to thank you so much for your great advice and what you had to say, especially about, you know, the heart-centered business, creative business, because that's so important to me and it's so important to so many other people. It's good to know that we have guides out there and coaches that can help us grow our businesses and, you know, follow our dreams. So I want to thank you for being with us, Shelly. And I want to remind our viewers that on Saturday, September 4th, we're going to be speaking with the amazing Marianne Skiba, and we're going to continue our talk on creativity. So thanks for joining, everyone, and thank you, Shelly.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye.